everyone, and welcome to this non-spoiler review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny here from the
Geek Buddies!
Hey!
Yeah.
Look at this one. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, joined as always by Shannon McClung. Shannon, how are you?
Johnny, I'm doing well. Still on a high from last night when we got to have a sneak peek at Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Absolutely. Drove up to LA, had a +1. Shannon was down to come and hang out with me. We watched the movie. We were glowing. Our out-of-theater reaction is up on the channel as well. 60 seconds of our initial thoughts. And we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this movie on this review. We're going to keep it kind of short, 15, 20 minutes, not too long. And we're going to give our general overall thoughts on certain sections of the film or certain things in the film for sure. So don't worry. We're very clear that we're not going to avoid anything. We're adamant that we're not going to spoil anything. We want to make sure you guys enjoy the film. So, Shannon, overall thoughts on this? We get an Indiana Jones. We do know there's a flashback as we saw in the trailer, but also we get him as the old man with Phoebe Waller Bridge, who we find out is his goddaughter. Of course, that was already teased as well. But they're going after this artifact, and they're going toe-to-toe with Mads Mikkelsen throughout the movie until some really incredible things at the end of the film. So, your thoughts overall on this Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny?
Really, really positive. Again, and a lot of this has to do with where I set my expectations. Because coming out of Cannes, there were so many initial really positive responses. Then it got exceptionally lukewarm. And having had my heart broken by Kingdom of the Crystal Skull 15 years ago, I was just kind of like, okay, you know what? All I want is one good last adventure with the Man in the Hat. And that is what James Mangold delivered. Do I think everything worked? No. There are plenty of things that, especially in our spoiler review, that will go into specifics. But overall, I just had such a great time. Again, where I set my expectations, it certainly defied them. I just had a blast. I mean, I'm so happy that we got to send Indiana Jones out on a high note.
Yeah, 100% agree. I went in with, I'd read the bad reviews. I'd read the lukewarm reviews. I was preparing myself for a Crystal Skull experience. But by the time it was over, I just had a really great time. The humor worked for me. The decisions by the characters worked for me. The near escapes worked for me. The progression of the character of Indiana Jones worked for me. Where he ends up by the end of the film and the things he has to do at the end of the film, I was 100% on board. And Phoebe Waller Bridge was great, just absolutely great in how they worked her into the story. So for me, overall, I thoroughly enjoyed the movie and I left with a smile on my face. And yes, it evoked a lot of the best of Indy. And does it all work, as Shannon said? No, not 100%, but enough of it works. And really a lot of it works for me to walk out feeling incredibly satisfied. This is already number 3 of all the list of the Indiana Jones films. This is already number 3, well above Temple of Doom and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But let's get into the direction first. I know the easy choices go to Harrison. We'll wait for a second. Let's go to the direction here. James Mangold stepping in here. Certainly not easy to follow Steven Spielberg into an Indiana Jones film and do your own take on it. Certainly great stuff with Logan, tackling an older version of Wolverine, what his life would be like. We're getting an older version of Indy. How do you feel his direction was? We went all over the world in this movie, yet again, in other Indiana Jones films, but there were some nice tender moments. There were some big action sequences, and there were some fantastical stuff as well. What did you think overall of how James Mangold did directing this film?
I think Mangold's direction was stellar. With Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, there was something, for me at least, there was something off right from the beginning. I'm like, this just does not feel like Indiana Jones. And I never had that thought in Dial of Destiny. It just felt like an Indiana Jones movie. I mean, it felt, especially that opening sequence, that, the flashback, that felt like, a couple of pages that had fallen out of the book of the original trilogy that we never got to read. I don't think the technology is quite there to make that sequence as good as we wanted it to be, fair. But that has nothing to do with the direction of James Mangold. Again, it just felt like Indiana Jones. I mean, the way that he worked the camera, the story beats, there was definitely the humor, there was definitely the heart. It just felt like it felt like the fourth movie that I wish we would have gotten.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, I thought there was a nice confidence to Mangold's direction and where he was going with the characters, where he was taking us. It really reinforcing the villainous side of Mads Mikkelsen's character and the people that he is surrounded by, going after Indy. The chemistry between him and Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I mean, a director. A lot of the times, a director will work with the actors to get that chemistry right, make sure it's good on camera to tell the overall story. I thought that worked really well. The introduction of newer characters as the film went along, I thought was great. Bringing some of the older characters back, I thought was great as well, and how they worked all of that. The way he shot the action sequences, there are some really well done action sequences. Shannon mentioned the opening action sequence, but also the action sequence later on when they're driving through Tangier and all of that. I thought that was fantastic. The action sequence we get on the water and everything in the planes. So there's a lot of planes. So planes, trains, and automobiles basically is what's going on, and the horse as well. All of that going as we saw teased in the trailer. So a lot of great action sequences, but also the way he uses the camera when we get into the looking for the artifact part of the movies. That is really what decorates the best of Indiana Jones. I thought his camera work here was excellent as well. How he makes you feel the environment and see all the perils and the dangers coming from that environment before they pop up. I thought that was really great. And the pacing of the film worked so well. I've seen some people say it was overlong or just kind of dragged in spots. I didn't feel that at all. I was 100% dialed in from beginning to end because of how he edited this film, how he put the shots together, and how he generally put this overall film together and paced it out for that fantastic ending. In my opinion. Let's move on to the script here. Shannon, you're a script writer here. We've got Jez Butterworth, John Henry Butterworth, and David Koepp, the great David Koepp, coming in to write this one as well. So your thoughts on how the script, the story, the back and forth, the exchanges here, how things progressed and led to that finale of the movie?
Again, dialogue-wise, this just felt like an older Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
When I got back last night, I actually put on Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and there were, and I know that film does have its fans, so I don't want to feel like I'm attacking the movie, but Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, some of that dialogue coming out of Indy's mouth, I'm like, that just doesn't sound like Dr. Henry Jones Jr. to me. Right. This one does. I mean, I thought the dialogue was super strong. I think again the addition of Phoebe Waller Bridge. I mean, she just felt so natural in this world. Yeah. In terms of some of the story beats, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with folks that it maybe was a little overly long. I think there were spots that it could have been tightened up. And a lot of that was the script. I mean, I think there were some aspects that maybe we didn't totally need. And I think there are a couple of emotional beats, again, in terms of the writing, not the direction or the acting, but there was a handful of moments and I'm like, it didn't quite get there. But again, coming off the heels of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, this was just, again, so much fun.
Yeah, I would say that if you're going into this movie thinking it's going to be Raiders or Last Crusade, you're going to be disappointed. It's just a different approach to it. And hey, it's a different director, so they're going to have a different vibe overall. But I thought the script worked well for the most part. I agree with you. There were a couple of spots or a couple of scenes where it felt like they were stretching the bounds of credibility and also rushing through certain moments instead of letting them sit for a little bit, letting us connect for a little bit. I'm thinking of a certain scene on the boat. I would have liked a little more time with the people involved in that before everything that happened there. So those are those things you're just like, man, I want a little bit more. But I like the way Phoebe Waller-Bridge is introduced. I like the back and forth that they have, the changing dynamic. This is the thing that's incredible about the script, in my opinion. Throughout the whole movie, the changing power dynamics of the relationship between Harrison Ford and Phoebe Waller-Bridge in the movie is fantastic. Just constantly, 1 second it's Indy, then it's Phoebe Waller-Bridge, then it's I want to say her character Helena. What 1 minute it's Helena, 1 minute it's Indy, 1 minute it's Indy, 1 minute it's Helena, 1 minute it's Indy, 1 minute it's Indy, and I like that throughout. Toby Jones, the way he's worked into this movie, I thought worked really well as well in terms of the script and seeing what he was going through connected to the artifact, and Mads Mikkelsen having his moments as well in certain scenes, especially look for a scene with him and a room service person that I think really hammers the point home of who that character is. So there's stuff here that I thought worked really well script wise. And as we're getting closer and closer to that finale, how things kind of come together, how things are, who is backstabbing who changes sides, and all of that. I think it works really well in the movie overall because of the script. But yes, as Shannon said, there are certain scenes that you feel like we could have done a little more tightening here or a little more polishing here to really hit the emotional point in these scenes for sure. All right, let's move on to the acting. Before we end this review, we have to talk about the acting here. Harrison Ford reprising the role as Indiana Jones. We're getting obviously Phoebe Waller Bridge, as we mentioned already, Mads Mikkelsen, Antonio Banderas, Toby Jones, John Rhys Davies, Boyd Holbrook. These are the names I'm reading off the IMDb list. So some fantastic actors here coming in, reprising the roles or coming in as new. And I thought the performances across the board, Shannon, were fantastic. Didn't find anybody to be unbelievable necessarily. And I think Boyd Holbrook stood out to me in really interesting ways. Mads is great. Toby was fantastic. Phoebe was great. And there's a confidence and a strength and a how can I say this? Just a willingness to be a bravado. That's the word I would say. A bravado to Phoebe Waller-Bridge's performance that I enjoyed. But Harrison Ford, just great to slide on the fedora again, put on the whip again, and that leather jacket. And it works from when you go to the flashback to present day. You believe the journey he's going on emotionally that leads to the decisions that are happening at the end of the movie. I thought it all really worked in terms of acting top to bottom. What did you think?
I mean, 2023 has just been a banner year for Harrison Ford. And you know, when you look at his career, when you look at his filmography, he didn't need a banner year. Like he's going down as one of the biggest movie stars in the history of cinema. But between 1923 on Paramount Plus, between Shrinking on Apple, and now, you know, the final Indiana Jones movie. Harrison Ford is just it looks like he's having fun.
Yeah.
But he's also really getting to stretch his acting muscles. I mean, this is Indiana Jones in a different point in his life.
Yeah.
And again, not to get into the spoilers, but it's a side of Indy that we haven't explored that much.
Yeah.
So it was really great to see him kind of get to sink his teeth into that. But then you also still have that famous Harrison Ford swagger and humor in the vein of Indiana Jones that just worked really great. I mean, he had a couple of really good one-liners. To the new cast members, again, Toby Jones, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, they just felt like they belonged in this world. Again, back to Oh yeah, I'm gonna get to Mads.
Oh yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
But with the two of them, like there was just an authenticity to their interactions with Harrison Ford that you know, most of the cast of these movies are new people.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, John Rhys Davies has been in the most Indiana Jones movies outside of Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
But so there is that's a challenge to establish that relationship, to make it feel like these people have known each other for a very, very long time.
Right.
And I don't think that's something that they succeeded in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull with Jim Broadbent and Ray Winstone. I was just kind of like, you're both fantastic actors who've been dropped into this, and it just doesn't feel right. His relationship with Basil, with Toby Jones, was great. Like I would that's a relationship I would love to see more of. We're not going to, but I would love to have seen more adventures of Indy and Basil. Indy's interactions with Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I mean, that relationship is kind of the crux of the movie, and it works really, really well. And to Mads Mikkelsen, he's given us the best Indiana Jones villain since Belloc.
Ooh, wow, strong statement. Okay, yeah.
That is he is a villain with a fully realized point of view
and a purpose,
and a bite.
Yeah,
like he is very, very clear in his objectives. I mean, I think last night you and I were chatting, like there's an element of Magneto to him that he is a true believer in what he is trying to accomplish. So I mean, acting wise, I mean, Antonio Banderas, again, another actor that fit in seamlessly. And also the young actor who played Teddy, whose name is Ethan Isidore,
Yeah.
you know, avoids the pitfalls of the child sidekick.
Yeah.
Did a really, really nice job.
Yeah.
Oh, and Boyd Holbrook.
Oh,
He was able to take your standard henchman role and add some layers to it.
yeah.
I imagine that character did not jump off the page, but when you get an actor like Boyd Holbrook who just brings so much gravitas, he was really able to make. I think the character's name is Kleber or Kleber, but he was really, really able to make him stand out.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And it's great to see Boyd Holbrook getting more and more opportunities to show what he can do. Vengeance to this to Logan, you know, of course Logan Mangold as well. So clearly he likes to use Boyd Holbrook. So we'll see him again, I'm sure, at some point down the road. Maybe you'll see him in Star Wars. Wouldn't that be insane with a Mangold film in Star Wars down the road? We'll see. But yeah. All right. So any things that you didn't like about the movie? As we wrap up our non-spoiler review, anything you didn't?
I mean, it is long. It is. I feel like this is probably the longest Indiana Jones movie, and there were moments where it didn't feel like it needed to be. It needed to be as long. I mean, I think there was some tightening that could have been done. Again, that opening sequence, that's a sequence on the page that I imagine it did just leap off. Like you can see, like, oh, this would be so fantastic. But they are a little constrained by the limits of technology. And as good as Harrison Ford looks, there are those moments where your brain's just like, something's off. Something's off. But yeah, I mean, I think there's like a handful of like tiny little subplots here and there that's like, I don't know what that actually got us, but it didn't detract enough for me not to overall really, really enjoy the film.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There are a couple of, like, especially with the villains, there's just kind of a cross purposes about it, and you don't really understand why that is or what's involved with that. And I think there needed to be more time with figuring all of that out as it played itself out in the movie. If we'd spent a little more time fleshing that out, I think they would have been a little more stronger when those moments start to happen later on in the film. I agree with that completely. I don't think there's any complaints I would have about the Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Harrison Ford connection and chemistry. That was really good stuff. I would have liked a little more time with some of the other characters that pop up in the film. I'd liked a little more time, but that's me being selfish because I was really having a good time and enjoying the film. So I know people say overly long. It wasn't overly long for me, but there are moments where you're like, well, let's remove that. We could have put more time in with these other characters to put that in there overall. And yes, I agree. The uncanny valley thing is still an issue, but it's getting better. It's getting better because the emotions and the acting are slowly coming through more and more when they're making these decisions. But I would have liked just a little bit more there, but there was enough there to at least hang on to and feel like you were watching an indie performance from that time, for sure. All right. And any final words, Shannon, as we wrap up here for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny?
I mean, I can't wait to see this again.
And your rating. Yeah, go ahead. Out of 5.
Out of 5, it is 4 stars. Okay. 4 stars out of 5, easy. Okay. I can't wait to see this movie again. I told you last night, I'm like, all right, this is the movie that I'm going to be seeing once a week, every other week for the rest of the summer, more than likely. But I can't wait to see it again. I can't wait for Vogel to see it, and I can't wait for the three of us to chat about it because some of the issues that I do have, I'm like, there's no way to talk about this without getting into spoiler territory. And there's also a little tip of the hat that I don't want to do. And I'm like, I don't want someone to watch this and hear that criticism and have that inform their viewing experience. But there is a very particular thing that I do want to talk about, but we'll do it in 2 weeks. We'll do it in 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I give it 4 out of 5 stars as well. 4 out of 5 cowboy hats, I should say, the yellow. But yeah, it really brought back the feeling of indie. This is what you want to come back to. This reminded me of like John Wick 3 when they came back after John Wick 2, which I wasn't a big fan of. You go back to the basics. You go back to what works. And they did that here. They made the old man thing work, which I really didn't think they were going to make it work. I was one of those people with my arms crossed saying, I don't need an 80-year-old Indiana Jones. How little did I know that I do need an 80-year-old Indiana Jones because of what he experiences. And kudos to Harrison Ford and James Mangold for getting such a vulnerable, open an honest performance from Harrison Ford in certain moments. And for those of us who are getting older, there's a lot that he experiences in the film that we can connect to and feel. And maybe for the younger reviewers, maybe that kind of pissed them off because they can't understand that. Those of us who are older viscerally connect to those moments that I think work really well in the progression and the thoughts and the feelings that were going on, I think were really important. But yes, the threat of the Nazis, the back and forth with everybody's in all these scenes made me feel like I was watching an Indiana Jones film again. And I've been one of those people that's like, do we really need Indiana Jones anymore in 2023? Well, after seeing this movie, I have to say I would love one more adventure, selfishly, for this Harrison Ford and James Mangold directing it with Indiana Jones one more time. It would be a blast for sure. All right, well, there you go. That's our non-spoiler review for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. We appreciate you all hanging out with us. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at geek_buddies, on Instagram at _geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow the absent Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. And if you would like to follow the ever-present Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
Yes, sir. And please remember to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell button so you see when we're dropping all the content we do on the Geek Buddies and the Outlaw Nation channel overall. Hit that subscribe button, leave a comment down below, and hit a like. And subscribe to our podcast feed as well. If you don't want to see our pretty faces, or you want to re-listen to some of this content we do with the Geek Buddies, it is available on the podcast feed there. Just look wherever you download podcasts and find the Geek Buddies. All right, y'all take care of yourselves. Be well. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Go see it and let us know what you thought about it. And we'll talk to you next time with another brand new non-spoiler review here on the
Geek Buddies.
Hey!